because uh didn't have I did I didn't and I would I was just feeling a little bit better too because I got just some roses, some orange ones at the store. But so I didn't have I did I think that's what uh, I think that's what they want. Blah, 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 blah. You know, to hit me, to hit it get me startled, but I want to try to I want to try to calm down. I wasn't able to um do any I try to put him up there. Maybe if I bend his legs, it won't be so. Yeah. Hey. Mm. Chapter 21. Cristal leaned forward after the plates were cleared and placed her elbows on the table. She gave Tony a clear-eyed appraisal as waiters bustled past their table and other diners bent to their conversations. The restaurant called Madres belonged to Jennifer Lopez. Cristal approved of that. She thought highly of any Latino, Chicano, or Hispanic, however defined, who made something of herself through hard work and brains. Never mind the mess with Ben Affleck. Well, that's not good. Mm, my straw is broken. That's okay. Mm. Was Tony making some kind of politically correct statement in bringing her here? No matter. The food had been okay, and the atmosphere, if too frenetic, was still worth experiencing. If nothing else, she could tell her mother about it one day. So, Cristal, Tony leaned back. You've made it. You're in LA. How does it feel to be part of the team? She studied him as she considered the question. He was wearing a blue Dewey and Durham blazer over a white silk shirt by Dior. The latter hung open down to the sternum, probably to show off the golden necklace that covered his breastbone. Tony's eyes betrayed a subtle excitement as he watched her. During the meal, he had gone to the restroom no less than 3 times for reasons she could only speculate on. Wait, what does that? Huh? What does that mean? Mm. No, it's just like a straw. It's like ba 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 ba. It's just like my huh. So I'm sorry. I just want to cry. Okay, sorry. It's a comfort to me to have a straw. I guess is stupid. Um, but I feel like really bad. So yeah. Okay, sorry. Mm. Uh, my eye. Huh. So I don't know. I could be going to the bathroom. Powder his nose. That's what women do. We're gonna go to the little girl's room. Uh, since he hadn't come back with white powder on the corners of his nostrils, and his pupils seemed normal, she assumed it had been to double check his appearance. That or his bladder was volumetrically challenged. Part of the team, Sheila's team, me, Rex, Dot, Lyman, all of us. I tell you, babe, Tony, how many times have I asked you not to call me babe? Yeah, well, like, it's part of the language, the way we talk out here. It isn't just that you're a knockout. I mean, you can really sail out here, Crystal. I get seasick. It's like seasick? I was raised in New Mexico. The one time I rowed a boat out on the ocean, I got sick. It wasn't pretty. He looked confused. What are you talking about? You said I could really sail. I've seen those little sailboats down at the Marines. It looks bouncy. No way, you jacking me, Crystal. I mean, you could have it all. Do it right, and you could take off like a rocket. He flashed her the kind of smile that made an orthodontist tingle with satisfaction. You don't know it, but you've got a quality that I think would melt the lens. It's a no bullshit presence, a sense of self, strong, like a here I am statement. Look at me, see me, solid chutzpah, babe. Right, you think I could be a movie star? She gave him a mocking look. He leaned forward, challenge in his sparkling blue eyes. Crystal, a lot of chicks would jump at a chance like this. You don't want to stay in celebrity protection. I can see it in you. Not when you got a chance to reach out and pull in a chunk of the sky. He extended his arm, hand closing into a grasping fist. Now, that's not to say it's going to be easy. You get me? I mean, it isn't any trite figure of speech when I say it's a jungle out there. Let me guess. You're the great white hunter. She arched an eyebrow. If I just place myself in your hands, well, it might or might not work, right? Work out, right? He gave her a grin. I don't do so bad with Sheila. Stow it, Tony. I'm not buying. If you're going to do the hard sell, try it with Patsy from Peoria. Pe- Peoria catching strays again. I've been around the block a time or two. He cocked his head, the blue eyes narrowing. You think this is all a gig to get into your pants? Funny you should bring that up, but yeah, I do. And you know what? There's just room enough in my britches for me. What? He threw his head back and laughed, genuinely amused. You know, Cristal, you're right. Here you sit in the presence of one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, and you're too cool. He tapped his long fingers on the table. That wounds me. I'm one of the hottest agents in the biz, and you're blowing me off. Shit happens, she added sweetly. Okay, I'll bite. So why'd you say yes to dinner? Because I promised and I broke it. I keep my promises. Oh wow, what morals? But you still sleep with a married man, so. She glanced around at the other patrons, mostly well dressed, manicured, and affluent. Maybe that doesn't happen a lot in Hollywood, but I'm me. Call me a lamb among the wolves. His eyes changed, cooling, calculating. For the first time, she realized that he was indeed a man worth taking seriously. Somehow, I don't think you're any innocent lamb, Cristal. Hey, New Mexico kid, in from the sticks, that kind of thing. I heard you were a lawyer. I got a law degree, and once upon a time I passed the New Mexico bar. She shrugged. That's not really a lawyer. So what then? I was looking for challenge. You're kidding. Leaving a law practice for the FBI. Let me get this straight. You thought working your way up in a law firm wasn't going to be a challenge. Ah! She ran her napkin through her fingers, folding it into pleats. How do I say this so that you'll understand? I had something in my gut. No, maybe it was a chip on my shoulder. Do you know what lawyers, especially young ones like me, get stuck doing? It's a world of paper, of books and research. I was tired of offices and libraries. I wanted to get out in the world, find bad guys, and bust their balls. He gave her an evaluative stare before saying, What did he do to you? Who? The guy that sent you off like this. It wasn't any one guy or girl for that matter. The men in my life, going back to my father, have been good or bad, or a combination of each. I dealt with my share of cabrones, as well as nice, decent guys. She shook her head. No, this was something different. Maybe wanderlust of the blood. I wanted to be able to look back and say, hey, I did that. Can you follow? Yeah, I follow. You wanted high adventure. What about you? Did you wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a talent agent? Nah, I started as the receptionist. Tony made a disparaging gesture. Day after day, I sat there watching the people come through the door, learning, producers would sit in the lobby, bitching or bragging, and I hear it. He smiled. Hey, it was cool. I was working for peanuts, just for the chance to be close to the action. At first, it was for bragging rights, to tell the chicks that I knew what films Halle Berry was going to be starring in, or that I'd heard Harold Becker tell Margaret Riley that his dirty joke. You made it a bit beyond the reception desk. She could see the gleam in his eyes. Tony liked to talk about himself. That's the thing, babe. I started going in and telling the boss, hey, this guy's hot for Drew Barrymore. So I sort of worked my way into the system. And pretty soon I was being invited to lunches and parties. Okay, I'm sorry. Who was ever hot for Drew Barrymore? Anyone in the chat had a thing for Drew Barrymore? Sorry. I was pretty soon I was being invited to lunches and parties just to circulate, listen, and report back to the boss. Then it was planning sessions. Say maybe the Cohens wanted one of our clients. How did we know when we'd reach a contract breaker? A soft smile rode his lips as he stared into the past. Then, one day, I realized I was telling the old man more than he was telling me. It was epiphany, right? Wham! I'm actually doing this. Clients were feeling me out for what the boss was going to say. Did I think it was the right deal, the right role? I was dishing out the whole enchilada. So you were made a partner? Tony shook his head. Nah, I laid my plans, started dealing with the clients. When the leverage was right, I walked, and I took about half of them with me. He gave her a quizzical look. Weird, you wouldn't believe how many stayed that I thought would come with me, but the ones who did were enough. I learned the ropes. I knew which knot to pick at and how to retie it into a killer deal. He gave her an evil grin. And babe, I'm good. Was Sheila with you from the beginning? Nope. She was pissed at her agent at ICM. A little bird told me. Landing Sheila was like the best. Awesome. Tricky shit, but I was at the right place at the right time with the right deal. Cool. His smile was infectious. Christelle sat back, relaxing. For the first time. You want my opinion? Sure, you're a rogue. Damn straight. But a charming one. Once you stop dishing out that hotshot agent bullshit, play that game with bimbos, Tony. Don't waste it on an intelligent woman. One of his golden eyebrows rose. So, wow, does that mean like I still got a chance with the mysterious and enigmatic Cristal? Don't bet on it. His grin was impish. I'll take that as a challenge. Whatever, it's your funeral. Hey, babe, if you're dealing with Tony Zell here, it's cool. I can bide my time, dazzle you with brilliance. Just wait, you'll see. I'm going to charm you like you've never been charmed before. In E.T., wasn't she like 4 years old? Firestarter. She was like a child actor. Is that a fact? Hey, I'm like one of those Indian fakirs with a flute. I'll get you out of your basket yet, I tell you. I can already imagine you swaying to the music. Uh-huh. She leaned forward, her hair spilling around her shoulders. Just remember, Tony, I'm not one of your cobras. Yeah? For sure. This time you've come face to face with a desert tough New Mexican culebra. What's that? More than you can handle. He pushed back in the chair, laughing from deep in his belly. You're a cool one, Cristal, really cool. Lyman sat at his office desk, going through the receipts. He had a cup of coffee within reach of his right hand. Behind him, the computer screen glowed with his favorite screensaver, a series of motorcycles. Oh my god, he's got your screensaver, Terry. Some road racers, others touring bikes, an occasional flying motocross machine, and a trials rider balancing atop a huge boulder on its skinny gas. A Nancy Griffith CD was set just above the audible range to keep his emotions in check. What does that mean? Well, Drew Barrymore, she got in trouble during the writer's strike because she was still like doing her show, but there was like they're on strike, like there was something. So I don't know if the industry really likes her so much right now, you know. But anyway. He needed Nancy Griffith's soothing voice. I wish Pale was here to tell me who the hell Nancy Griffith is. If he didn't do something to calm himself through the arduous process of dealing with the bits of paper, he'd go slightly berserk and break something. Why did paperwork have to be such a miserable hassle? He assumed it was because the people who wrote the tax laws, ran the IRS, and operated major accounting houses were both socially and sexually handicapped, bug-eyed geeks with skinny arms and soft round bellies instead of real people. He took a moment, imagining them bald-headed, wearing white shirts with thin black ties and gray rumpled slacks. They were smooth-shaven and pale-skinned. They carried shiny pens in their pockets. He could visualize their soft white fingers as they danced on the calculator keys and tape spooled out of the machines. Every now and then they would look across at each other and grin maliciously. It was because they knew that while they might be impotent wimps, they had the last laugh. I don't know. I think tax laws are just meant to be complicated because, like, um, well, it gets like stacked and pads jobbed, and then industry built around it, and people get their carve outs, so you gotta kind of hide that, and yeah. I never knew an IRS agent. I knew someone that knew someone who was once an IRS agent. Yeah, that's not even close, is it? As far as impotent weasels, I don't know. I wouldn't know that. Mm, I think it's just a job. It, in the end, all the tough guys like Lyman Bridges were doomed to spend endless and meaningless hours of their lives pushing paper to totaling columns, balancing books, and organizing receipts instead of enjoying their tough stud, action filled lives out in the sun. Mm. Maybe for fun, I'll go beat up an accountant. Lyman savored the fantasy as he stapled a pile of New York receipts together for June's attention. He leaned back, scowling at the different piles of paper on his desk. Someone had told him that the tax code was contained in bound books that stood 8 feet high when stacked atop each other. If the If it demonstrated anything, it was a measure of the success of the American economy. Nothing else would explain a GDP that could support so many non-productive parasites feeding off the sweat of the productive few. Wow! I love it. Oh, gosh. Oh, Dwight has heard of the person. Have you? Hmm. I like people that are good with numbers. They're a rare breed. I feel like they're getting rarer. I mean, I never was, so
I can't speak about it with any um. So, voices carried down the hallway from June's desk, and he wondered who had come in. He was halfway through Paul's expense report when the voices grew louder. Lyman lifted an eyebrow and waited. He heard June's emphatic no and pushed his chair back before getting to his feet. Stepping into the hallway, he could see the man standing in front of June's desk. He was a handsome sort, mid-20s, maybe 30, middle height, square shoulders, and a dark suit coat. The guy was dark haired, shaven, but with that dark shadow to the cheeks that indicated a thick beard. He had a strong jaw, straight nose, and brown eyes that now locked with June's. Lyman padded into June's office and asked, "Is there something here I should know about?" June turned in her swivel chair, jerking a thumb over her shoulder. "This guy wants Cristal's address." "Cristal?" Lyman raised his eyes. "Why? Who are you?" The man had a competent way about him, as if he was used to authority. "I'm Lyman Bridges. I run this place." The man nodded, offering his hand. "Hank Abrams. I'm with Burrell Security. I suppose you've heard of us." Hank Abrams. Lyman kept the surprise from his face. "Yeah, I've heard of Burrell Security. They do good work. Are you here for personal or professional reasons?" That took him back. Lyman could see him thinking through the possible answers. "Professional," Abrams finally admitted. "I see." Lyman smiled graciously. "If you will leave your phone number and address, I'll see that Cristal gets them. After all, it's up to her if she decides to contact you." Oh. Parasite. Oh, yeah, they've been bothering Jerry. I forgot about that. So here we go. Hank's in LA. Come to get Cristal. Abrams gave him a hard, evaluative look, then said, "I'd prefer to contact her on my own." "I'm sure you would." Lyman kept his professional smile in place. "If I could offer some friendly advice, I'd say you might be better off to give her a little warning. Given your history, she might shoot first and wonder why you showed up after the fact." Abrams gave him an icy smile as he put the pieces together. "I see. Thanks for the advice. That's real neighborly of you. You wouldn't have some ulterior motive yourself, would you? Such as?" Lyman could feel June's curious gaze as she bent between them. "Cristal's an attractive lady." "She's good at her job," Lyman countered. "Are you trying to protect her?" "She can protect herself." "Then why won't you give me her address? I already told you." Abrams narrowed his eye, the smile never wavering. "What's wrong? Afraid I might just hire her away?" "It's a free market. If you're worried, you're welcome to contact our New York office. My boss, Burrell, doesn't concern me. You do. Just write your name, phone, and address there on the notepad. Cristal will have it by tonight. My word on that. I'll tell her you're interested in hiring her. She can decide what she wants to do. That's it. Sum and total." Abrams glanced back and forth between Lyman and June, smiled ill humor, and bent, jotting on the notepad at the corner of the desk. As he finished and twisted his envelope to retract the ballpoint, Lyman asked, "Who was the Arab?" Abrams started, and for that one instant, Lyman could see him off balance. He recovered quickly, saying, "The Sheik is a client of ours." Lyman replied, "And Sheila Marks is our client." Abrams watched him for a moment and then said, "From what I see in the news, you haven't been doing such a hot job protecting her recently." "Whoa, you fucker." And then he wants to take some of Cristal's skin. He flipped a mock salute. "Nice to have met you, Mr. Bridges." "Oh, Lyman, kill this fucker." He turned on his heel, stepped to the door, opened it, and left. The sound of his feet on the steps grew fainter as he descended to the street level. Lyman ground his teeth, glaring at the door, and stepped around to rip the paper from the pad. He glanced down, recognizing the address for the Hollywood Hilton. That was interesting, June told him evenly as she wheeled her chair around to face her desk again. Would you mind telling me what just happened here? Turf fight? Or was that just two dominant males growling, bristling, and scratching the dirt? Lyman folded the paper. It's deeper than that. He filled her in on the New York trip and then added, Abrams and Cristal were involved when they worked for the Bureau. It went bad enough to make Cristal resign. June studied him thoughtfully. I see. Good, 'cause I sure don't. What the hell was he doing here? And just why does he really want to see Cristal? June shook her head. I don't know, but if you think it has something to do with Sheila, maybe you'd better have a word or two with Cristal soonest. Cristal's on a date with Tony Zell. Chapter 22. Get a sip of my non-straw coffee. Ugh. Mm. Cristal looked up from the stack of daily variety magazines she had been going through at her kitchen table. There was the sunlight off the plexiglass windscreen on the silver BMW motorcycle that caught her attention. She watched through the window as Lyman parked the bike, leaned it on to the side stand, and stepped off. He was unbuckling his helmet as he walked from the parking spot next to her Chrysler. She met him at the door before he could knock and motioned him in, saying, Not much new on this front. I got some feelers out, but I'm drawing a bus looking for links between Sheila and the actors targeted by the celeb hits. Then she got a good look at Lyman's face. What's wrong? He tossed his helmet onto the couch and slipped out of his jacket. His eyes were smoky, as if something smoldered deep inside. He fished a folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to her before he turned and closed the door behind him. Cristal unfolded the paper. Seeing the company logo at the top, she stopped at the familiar script. The note stated, Cristal, contact me immediately. Most important, Hank. A 212 area code, telephone number, a cell, she assumed, and a Hollywood address followed. She glanced up at Lyman. Is this a joke? I wish. He was in the office a couple hours ago. Lyman watched her carefully. Cristal, I don't like it. Whatever is between the two of you isn't my business, but the fact that his client was so fixed on Sheila just might be. First, we target the Sheik at the Preem. Then, your old boyfriend shows up as the Sheik is leaving. Then, bam! Abrams is walking in my door asking to see you. You tell me, is this something I need to be concerned about? Yeah, I think so. Cristal took a deep breath, a cold feeling in her stomach. She perched her butt on the couch back. Honestly, Lyman, I don't have the foggiest idea. It's nuts, crazy, too far out. What did he want? Did he say? Only that it was professional. If it is, am I supposed to think it concerns Sheila? Is that the hidden agenda? Or is it just coincidence that he saw you in New York, got to thinking about his wife dumping him, and he talked Pharrell into trying to hire you so that you and he could get back together? Confusion came tumbling out of her brain, stopping any logical thought. No way in hell, she cried, crumpling the paper in her hand. What, does he think I'm a complete idiot? That I'd even want to be close to him? I have no idea, Lyman cocked his head, apparently seeing through her struggle for control. I don't want to see him. It gets worse. I think he tried to follow me from the office. Cristal stopped short, staring. Huh? Why would he do that? To find you? That's even nuttier than... She couldn't finish it, seeing the concern in Lyman's eyes. Wait a minute. What makes you think he was trying to follow you? A dark blue, Ford Taurus followed me from the office parking lot. Lyman crossed his arms, pacing back and forth on the living room carpet. It was parked back in the alley. I don't think he expected me to be on a bike. It must have been a shock when I threw a leg over the beamer and motored off. This Ford pulled out after me. He did a good job, but his hand was tipped. There's no parking where the car had been sitting. Hey, Hank was trained by the Bureau. If he was following, it wouldn't have been a half-assed job. Yeah, trained to do a tail with a team, right? Lots of cars, passing, pulling off, keeping in touch by radio, that sort of thing. This time he just had himself. It gets a little harder for one guy, especially if he's having to make it up as he goes. She glanced uncertainly at the window, half expecting to see a blue Ford pull into the space next to the BMW. Relax, Lyman told her. Splitting lanes is legal in California. He's still back on Wilshire somewhere, sitting in traffic. I went around a couple of blocks and stopped to talk to two homeless guys that live in the alley, Stuart and John. They described your Hank Abrams. He just pulled in and was waiting, figuring that you'd show up, I suppose, or maybe that if you and I were involved. What? Lyman chuckled. That was one of the things that crossed his mind when I wouldn't give him your address. Cristal shook her head, failing to see his humor in her current misery. Cristal, Lyman added gently, give him a call, see what he wants. If it involves that Sheik and Sheila, we need to know. She nodded numbly. The thought came tumbling out of her stunned mind. What if he offers me a job? I'd ask for double the salary you're getting now. Any other fringe benefits are up to Hank and Burrell. Thanks. No problem. He hesitated. Listen, I hate to ask you to call this guy. Anything you need, we're here for you. Me, Paul, the rest of the guys. If it gets sticky, we'll take care of you. You know that, don't you? She nodded. Yeah, I'll call him. Lyman, just give me time to get myself together. Hank Abrams had a sour feeling in his gut as he slowed, looking at his map, and frowned at the community gate that blocked his access to the street where Sheila Marks lived. Once again, he cursed life without FBI credentials. That badge had opened a lot of doors. It would have passed him here, too, where he didn't think a Burrell security business card would. The guy at the guard shack would have asked where he was going and double-checked to see if Burrell Security was making an advance at any of the houses up the road. Sheila Marks is our client, Bridges had told him. That meant that he might be able to pick up Cristal when she went off shift at the principal's house. Oh, so he wants to go to Sheila's house and look for Cristal. Stalker. Oh, the bitch. He slowed as he considered the guard shack that stood in the middle of the road and noted the cameras that had been placed unobtrusively in the ornate shrubbery to either side. Did he want a record of his presence here? It left him feeling awkward, somehow sordid. It wasn't as if what he was doing was illegal. The fact was there were no laws against him completing his assignment. Assault, the voice in his head said. But it wasn't assault, not in the classical sense. Yeah, it's a violate. You're violating her. Ow. All he had to do was get close to Cristal. He glanced at the small canvas kit bag on the seat behind him. He had checked out the special equipment it contained. The hand patch had been the most unusual hand patch. It stuck to the palm, and just by shaking hands, scrubbed off enough of the target's cells to be useful. The other stuff was no less esoteric, and each had its own particular uses. Hell, if the instructions were correct, he didn't have to have physical contact with her, just find out where she lived. He'd committed the list of things he could take to memory: hairbrush, toothbrush, dirty clothes, used personal items, a sack full of her garbage, and so forth. Theft, his illegally trained mind countered. Well, sure, by the strictest interpretation, but who would care? It wasn't like lifting a hairbrush was grand theft, for God's sake. All he needed to do was get into her house, and from there it was easy. Breaking and entering. Not if Cristal invited him in, he countered. Hell, All he needed was her washcloth. If she didn't invite him in, the trash would do. But it wasn't as discreet. The samples could have come from anywhere. With garbage, how would they know if a sample came from Cristal or a guest? But in a pinch, it would do. He could wait until she took it out, and then he'd box it FedEx, check out of his hotel, and be on a plane that night. He wheeled the Ford around and reluctantly drove away from the controlled access to Sheila Marks's community. As he passed the high-dollar houses, he couldn't help but notice the tall walls that surrounded the large mansions. One by one, he took the roads that surrounded it, figuring that the houses contained within sat on less than 5 acres. He could see the roofs through the gaps in the surrounding houses. Which one was Sheila Marks? The cell phone warbled in its melodious tone, and he pulled over to answer it. Hello? Hank? Cristal's voice was controlled, toneless. Hey, Cristal, it's good to hear you again. What do you want? She sounded icy. Look, we need to talk. Something's come up. Yeah, I remember the last time you got it up. Somehow I ended up getting screwed twice. He made a face. Dear God, Cristal, you have no idea how sorry I am. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to hurt anyone. I know. She seemed to actually understand. Ugh, feeling like itchy. The hell if I know why. Anxiety. Possibly. If I could take a pound of my flesh out of Gonzalez, I would. A pause. We just screwed up, that's all. He was ahead of us. I learned my lesson, Hank. What lesson was that? We weren't professional. That was the mistake I made that night. You can bet I'll never make it again. He took a deep breath. Yeah, that's two of us. That's why I need to see you. He paused. Marcia has filed for a divorce. Make your offer. Her voice was emotionless. He hesitated. Obviously, she wasn't into reconciliation. What is Bridges paying you? That's my business. He winced, then remembered Bridges' advice. I think we can double it. Her laughter caught him by surprise. Then she said, Hank, you couldn't afford me. Not that I'd work for you for any price. You haven't heard my offer. 10,000 a month. There, that ought to bring her around. At least get her to meet with him. You're not even close. More bitter laughter came rolling out of the earpiece. Have a nice life, Hank. Wait, Cristal, for God's sakes, wait, don't hang up. You tracing this? Need to keep me on the line? God, no, I swear. He shook his head, trying to figure out how it had gone so wrong. Look, if you and Bridges are involved, that's fine. Here's the scoop. My boss is interested in seeing if you have what it takes to join our firm. That's all. No pressure, no strings. You can stay here in LA and handle our principals here. I'm with LBA now. I like working for Lyman, you know? It sounded like a taunt. Sheila Marks is one of our clients. He frowned. Would she be interested in changing security firms? Could you get me and my boss an interview? Ah, so am I to believe that you want to use me to get close to Sheila? Is that it? You were always a deep player, Hank. Cristal, just meet with me. I'll buy your time if I have to. What? Pay you $5,000 just for the chance to. He realized that he was listening to dead air. She hung up. With a pained look, he pressed the end button and stared thoughtfully through the Ford's windshield at the row of expensive houses. Yeah, he grumbled. I'm a smart guy. I'll think of something. He threw the cell phone across the car, hardly aware that it shattered against the passenger window. Sid leaned back in his office chair at the Washington Metro field office and stared at. You have no idea how bad I want to take these off. I think these are like Because when I get those anxiety and stuff, like things touching my skin, like it causes like my body's like defending against it, you know? But then if I do it, I feel like I'm more likely to get banned, I guess. And so I'm just gonna have to get like really, really itchy. FML. Okay. Ugh. Sid leaned back in his office chair at the Washington Metro field office. So he's the one that's looking for like the missing, um, like biologists or whatever. And stared at the bulletin board across from him. It showed a map of the world. Here and there, pins were stuck into, marking where geneticists had disappeared over the last 5 years. Of all the cases he'd ever worked on, he never had one like this. It just seemed to lead nowhere. His counterparts contacted through Interpol had found the same thing, and they'd been working on some cases for 5 years. He needed a break, anything to get his mind off of the Gordian knot that his case had become. A picture caught his eye where it rested on the edge of his desk. Sid, Tim Paris, a fellow agent, and Cristal Anaya stood behind a podium receiving Meritorious Service Award. He smiled, reached over, and lifted the phone. He glanced at his Rolodex and pressed in the numbers. The distant ringing was followed by Cristal's voice. Hello? Cristal, it's Sid. What's up? I'm bummed. One of our missing geneticists, Nancy Hartley, was found floating off Long Island. I'm just hoping that Mike Harris, the guy from UCLA, the guy from UCLA, who had to take a pee, and Cindy Creedmoor, my girl from George Washington U, aren't doing the same. Oh, that feels better. He tried to cheer up, but I've got news for you. What, Sid? A couple of things. You asked me to get your car out of Hawk at Dulles. I got the keys you mailed me and had Anderson drop me off. I found the car, paid the shit, and drove it home. It's out beside my house. Claire isn't worried about it, and it's not hurting anything sitting there. No hurry. Pick it up whenever. Uh, he glanced at the ticket on the corner of his desk. You owe me $54.85. Thanks, Sid. You're a lifesaver. The check's in the mail as soon as I hang up. How's life in LA? Still sun, smog, and too much work? We're leaving tomorrow for Toronto. Sheila's on location there. We're staying at the Toronto Weston Harbor Castle if you need us. Good, I like Toronto. Good to Tim Hortons for me, will you? Check out those chocolate donuts they make. And drink a bottle of Upper Canada Dark. You can only get it in Ontario. Along that line, I've got something for you. Is it fattening or alcoholic? Neither. Genesis Athena. You wanted me to stick the name into my computer. Mm. Yeah? Biotech. What? It's a biotech firm. The head offices are in Yemen, of all places. Not exactly what you'd call the steaming hub of biotechnological activity, but I guess they got a good deal on land or something. That, and looking at the prospectus, there's a lot of Arab ownership. So why would there was a pause? Arab, did you say? Have I developed a stutter, or is this just a bad connection? Sid, can you fax me what you've got? Yeah, Chris, same fax number you told me before. That's it. It's on its way. I owe you one. I can't wait to collect. Sid. Yeah, Chris. Has Hank been in touch? Sid frowned. No, should he have been? He's here, trying to find me. If he does call, you don't know anything. Nothing. Got that? Are you just being paranoid, or does this have a purpose? We think he might have some interest in getting close to one of Lyman's principals. Nothing firm, mind you, and we doubt illegal, but, well, just keep it under your hat, all right? Yeah, sure. Hey, I'd do anything for Lyman. As to Hank, well, when he calls, I haven't heard a thing since you left DC. You're a pal, Sid. I love you. Take care. And then she was gone. You love me? He smiled wistfully. If I could only be so lucky. God. Chapter 23. The unions had driven a lot of filmmakers to Canada. Shooting costs were cheaper, the people more friendly. Hey! And most ironic of all, the city lent itself to many different interpretations of the good old USA. Sheila considered that irony as she sat in front of her penthouse window and looked out at the night. Her room was high in the Weston Harbor Castle. 300 feet below, she could see the marina hemmed by rocky jetties that enclosed a little harbor on the shores of Lake Ontario. Boats floated on black water, illuminated by the city lights. She could see more dots of light out on Island Park, where the last of the ferries had crossed. To the west, just out of her view, red and white Air Canada planes periodically took off from a compact lakeside airport. They were small, mostly twin-engined or equipped with floats as they headed for the wild Canadian Northland. Looking out beyond Island Park and across the water, she could see several ships, their lights nothing more than yellow dots in the night. South and slightly west, across the international border, Buffalo, New York radiated its light into the low clouds. South, southeast, she could see Rochester's telltale glow. Toronto, home. But was it? Yes, it was Canada, but it didn't feel like home. The red and white Canadian flags with her beloved make-believe warmed her soul, as did the familiar sight of the big yellow Bay department store signs, the red Scotia Bank, and finding CBC on the television in the morning, although she had no idea who the hosts were these days. The weight of the loonies and toonies in her hands weren't the same as dollars, and even though she had told the reporter from the Globe and Mail that it was good to be home, she now had to question the veracity of that. Ah. Home had been Saskatchewan, not Ontario. Mm.
Mm. What was it about Canada that it seemed to be independent worlds separated by an even greater distance? Mm. Ah. Mm. Then she felt between Regina and LA. It was only after living in the States that she had come to see how fragmented the notion of unity really was in the Canadian psyche. Quebec, Ontario, and the Western provinces might have been three different countries, with the maritime provinces as some peripheral satellites orbiting out there in the foggy east somewhere. She turned at a slight knock. Come in. The door opened, and she could see the main room as Lyman entered with a six-pack of what looked like beer hanging from his hand. He was dressed neatly, wearing a blazer and tie, his legs in cotton trousers. I brought something. Beer? She asked, squinting at the six-pack. Upper Canada Dark, he replied. Something Cristal said we had to try, based upon an old friend's recommendation. She gave him a look from under lowered brows. You've got a screen call tomorrow at 5 a.m. Does that mean anything to you? He glanced around her room, took in the laid back covers of the bed, smooth and folded as the turned down surface had left them. Only a blind idiot could fail to notice that she was still fully dressed as she sat in her chair before the window. In an inoffensive tone, he said, apparently it means more to me than it does to you. If you had been sacked out according to plan, you wouldn't have heard that faintest of knocks. No, I suppose not, she pointed. The opener is over there, assuming they're not twist-offs. He walked to the counter, pulled out two bottles, and levered the tops off, calling, Glass? No, she frowned as she took the bottle and studied it in the half light. You know, most Canadian beer is pretty weak. It's not like the microbrews you're used to. I'll take my chances. He lifted the long neck, sipped, and smiled. Sheila lifted her bottle and washed some of the effervescent brew over her tongue. That's really good. Lyman stood silently, staring out at the dark lake below. Quite a view. Your room doesn't have this. He shrugged. I get the CN Tower, a glimpse of the white top of the ballpark, and a nice panorama of downtown. He turned. How's the shooting going? Funny you should ask. She used a toe to tap the script she'd dropped on the floor by the chair leg. Without Manny, we've actually moved ahead of schedule. You tell me, Lyman, how does a prick like that get to be so important? Women drool over him, he chuckled. Cristal said that even she had to do a double take when he walked out at the photo shoot. She's a pretty sharp cookie, isn't she? Lyman nodded. I wish I could have hired her when I first started this business. I haven't seen her for the last couple days. Since we were shooting inside the Royal Ontario Museum, security was tighter than on the street. I turned her loose to do her research. What she found? Why do you think a biotech firm would have a link to your website? Sheila closed her eyes as she leaned back in the padded chair and sipped the mellow dark beer. I have no idea, Lyman. The website is Dot's domain. What did she say? She said that you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Genesis Athena throws you pennies from heaven. Their check clears each month. Maybe I'll ask when I do the Mike Bullard show tomorrow evening. She cracked an eye and glanced across at the clock next to her bed. God, is that the time? You have to be up in 5 hours. Lyman's voice was soft. I was afraid that you weren't sleeping. Yes, doctor, I'll just suck down my studs and collapse. I worry about you. The way he said it warmed her heart. I'll be fine, Lyman. She paused. What's the word on your mysterious Arab? Thankfully, there's nothing to report, he frowned. There's a curious twist. The day before we left, Crystal's, I guess you could call him ex, showed up. The one from New York? Yep. He wanted to see her something fierce. Offered her a job, and get this, even 5 grand just to meet with him. Mm, mm, mm. opened her eyes and turned her head to stare. Lyman's craggy features were softly illuminated by the light filtering through the tall window. You could see the firm set of his lips, the way he rocked up on his toes. That worries you. He was with Sheikh Abdullah in New York. Then he shows up, trying to get a line on Christophe. Why don't I like that scenario? You think he'd try to use Cristal to get to me? Mm. Maybe. Mm. Sip my coffee. It's been a long day. Not that it would do him much good. If he thinks that she'd tumble into his arms and help him do evil, he's sadly mistaken. Did you meet him? He came to the office looking for her. What did you think? Attractive, sharp, self-possessed, but not 100% on his game. He tried to follow me to Cristal's, did a shabby job of it. Not what Cristal's description would have led me to believe about his talents. He paused. Curious, do you think first Cristal goes into protection, and then he does? Is that just coincidence? Maybe, she shrugged. What else does an ex-FBI agent do? Private investigation? Police work? There aren't that many allied fields, are there? No, I suppose not. I'm just concerned is all. It's a pattern I can't explain. My butt crack feels itchy right here. And I think that it's like I'm think okay, does anybody else ever get like that when something touches? That's why like my hair get itched on my head, but literally because my butt cheeks touch each other, like I can get an itch. Sorry. Sorry. Maybe if I bend this way. I can't. Why do you like me? I'm a stupid hobbit. I can't even keep a journal. Yet my voice is not even strong right now. Okay, sorry. Okay. No, I suppose not. I'm just concerned is all. It's a pattern I can't explain. If I get if I can't explain it, it makes me nervous. The more nervous I get, the more I want to explain things. She placed the beer to one side and stood, walking on bare feet to stand behind him. Wrapping her arms around him, she placed her cheek on his shoulder. It will be all right, Lyman. You will keep me safe. You always have. Ah, yes, he chided bitterly, just like in that hallway in New York. And then, of course, there's my triumph in the ladies' room at the Beverly Wilshire. I wasn't hurt, was I? She asked. You could have been. She said nothing, tightening her hold, feeling the hard muscle lining his ribs and belly. For a long time she stood like that, allowing his warmth to seep into her cool body. Finally, she took a deep breath, let him go, and said, I can sleep now, Lyman, thank you. He turned, brushed his lips across her hair, and walked silently to the door, where he let himself out into the main room. And when you scratch it, it itches more. I know, but then it's like, it's still getting itchy. Rub some calamine lotion on my butts. Like, what do they say? Like oats? Like oat-based creams? Yeah. Help. Okay. Mm. Okay. The place was called Rotterdam, a microbrewery several blocks north of the Toronto Blue Jays ballpark. It didn't look like much from the outside, just a sign, the walls made of rough-sided ruddy brick. Inside it was a raucous, popular, and filled with the young and vigorous. Through gaps in the back wall, Christelle could see shining stainless steel vats where various kinds of beer and ale were brewed. The white wood walls had been scarred by years of occupancy. Posters hung there and there on the walls, and a series of large blackboard menus listed various brews and foods, all chalked in with different colored block letters. A hockey game ensorcelled a clutch of husky young men at the far end of the main room. They wore numbered jerseys and were accompanied by two rather nubile young women wearing cut-off shorts and stretch shirts a size too small for the breasts they stuffed into them. The wreckage of a fish and chips dinner basket was pushed off to Cristal's left, and a half-full glass of the establishment's famed stout sat to her right. The bar napkin before her was stuck to the table, but still served to fulfill its God-given purpose as a notepad. On the napkin top she had printed Genesis Athena. Then she had defined the terms. Genesis, to produce, to give birth to create. Athena, ancient Greek goddess of knowledge, first in war, symbol of the city of Athens, goddess of wisdom and knowledge, born fully formed from the forehead of Zeus. She considered the relationship of the two words together. Athena, sprung full blown from the forehead of Zeus. How had she been born? Use a fire axe, she muttered, thinking about extracting Athena from Zeus's forehead bone. Did that mean heads had anything to do with the assaults? Mel Gibson's razor scuzz came from the head, but that flew in the face of Sheila's tampon and urine. Nor did it fit the harpoon shot at Brad Pitt's butt. A sample? She asked under her breath. At that moment, the room exploded with cries of as someone scored a goal on the hockey game playing at the other end of the room. What was it that Lyman had said about Hollywood celebrities? That they paid for their success with pieces of themselves. Pieces. Like had been taken from Manny to Clark's penis? She frowned, thinking of witches and the desires that led them to possess. Lyman's words returned to haunt her. Under all the flash bulbs, fancy dresses, and long shiny cars, the world is feeding off her blood and sucking at her soul. Cristal reached into her purse and pulled out the Genesis Athena flyer that the kid had handed her at the benefit. Genesis Athena makes dreams come true. You can bring her into your life. Below was the image of Sheila Marks smiling out at the world. All right, I'll bite. Cristal reached into her bag for her cell phone and dialed the 1-800 number on the flyer. She pressed send and waited. Mm. Through 3 rings before an automated voice said, Greetings, welcome to Genesis Athena, the home of the stars. Please use the touch tone pad on your telephone to enter the first name and then push the pound sign before entering the last name of the celebrity or star that you admire the most. Cristal turned the phone so she could punch 743352 number or pound sign 62757. The voice said, According to your selection, you have chosen. Another voice supplied, Sheila Marks. Cristal smiled. Then the first voice resumed, If this is correct, please press 1. Cristal pushed the 1 on her keypad and heard the tone. For our free celebrity bio, press 1 now. Crystal repeated the operation. If you consider yourself to be Sheila's greatest fan, press 1 now. Crystal did. Sheila Marks has something special. When she smiles, the world is illuminated in light. If you dream of her night and day, press 1. Crystal made a face as she complied. We think you might have what it takes to join Sheila Marks's most exclusive circle of admirers. If you agree, press 1 now. Crystal pressed. Please enter your name and address starting with street, box, city, state, postal code, or zip now. Speak slowly and clearly for our voice recognition software. Crystal, caught off balance, sputtered, I'm Lisa Bridges, 12256 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 2, West Hollywood, California, 91210. She had only a moment to wonder if giving the LBA office address had been the right snap decision. Lisa Bridges, 12256 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 2, West Hollywood, California, 91210. The voice repeated it perfectly. If this is correct, press 1 now. Crystal punched the button. Enter your phone number now and press pound. Crystal entered her phone. Thank you for calling Genesis Athena and sharing your love of Sheila Marks. We will be mailing our Sheila Marks packet to you today. Please look for it in your box. If you do not receive it within the next week, please call this number again. A pause. We'll be sharing your dreams of Sheila. Then a click indicated the end of the conversation. The group at the far end whooped again as two hockey players slammed headlong into each other and tumbled onto the ice. Chapter 24. Sid Harness glanced at his watch. 28 minutes after noon. He still had 2 minutes before Lyman was supposed to call Sid. Sid used the time to peel back the paper that wrapped his turkey and provolone sandwich. He was sitting on a white vinyl-clad table in a subway off Thomas Circle. Looking out the window, he could see the statue of the corroded general sitting on his dark bronze horse. Traffic wheeled around below the general's feet. He was scowling out theoretically with the same grim determination that had held the line in Chickamauga, Franklin, and Nashville. The lunch crowd clogged the small restaurant, and behind the glass counter, two dark-skinned people, perhaps Pakistani or Iranian, hustled back and forth, slapping meat, lettuce, peppers, cheeses, and tomatoes onto buns. It was a good place, loud, crowded, and hectic. If anyone overheard, they'd only get bits and pieces. Sid had wedged himself into a small corner table. His back to the room, he sipped at the Coke he'd bought and could barely hear the Commerce Department secretaries bitching about their boss at the crowded table behind him. The good-looking blonde kept banging his chair back with hers. Sid's phone rang a half second after he'd taken his first bite. Swallowing, he washed it down with the Coke and opened his cell. Harness? Sid, Lyman. I was just sitting here thinking I ought to be billing you by the hour. Okay, Lyman paused. Is that legal? Hell no, but then neither is what I'm doing for you. You'd think I was working for the LBA instead of you-know-who. He glanced around uneasily, satisfied that people were more interested in slamming lunch and getting back to the grind than eavesdropping on wayward FBI agents. Did you get what I need? If I got your message correctly, you wanted to know where the toll-free number gave me was physically located. Your tax dollars have allowed me to ascertain that the phone number is answered at 98376 Virginia Avenue in Broomfield, Colorado. Colorado? That's what the divine oracle that lives inside the computer said. If you need to know more, you're going to have to cast tea leaves or do a little old-fashioned detective type footwork. Right. Thanks, Sid. What about the Sheik? He's a curious guy. Hails from warm, sunny, sandy Qatar. That's a small country about midway down the east side of the Persian Gulf. I know where Qatar is. We spent a weekend floating out in the harbor there. Remember R&R, compliments of the good old USN? Yeah, I do seem to recall that. But then I have the keen brain of a highly trained federal agent. You're just a marshmallow celebrity guard guy these days. Do you want to get to the point? The Sheik's rich. Owns a fleet of tankers and freighters that handle about 10% of the shipping going in and out of the Persian Gulf. He also has major investments in real estate around the world. You might be interested to know that he is big in your business. Yeah, pictures, I know. Ooh. Mhm. He likes being seen with pretty women, especially movie stars and high profile models. He likes to squire them around the world in his private 757. He lowered his voice. Just between you and me, I heard that he does sensitive things for both the Bureau and the company down at the Big L. The Big L was Sid's personal slang for the Central Intelligence Agency in Langley. I see. Anything that you can tell me that might relate to my client? No. He seems to be a legit Arab businessman who has decided that the future lies with the West rather than the dogmatic ragheads who want to go back to the Middle Ages. No conspicuous ties to terrorism, Al Qaeda, bad guys in Iran, or anything that would blacklist him. How about biotech? Is he invested in that? Odd that you should mention it. Yeah, he owns several companies that are into genetic engineering. They're agricultural, drought resistant corn and tomatoes, that sort of thing. Sid paused, wondering why it hadn't registered when he skimmed the memo he'd requested on Sheikh Ahmud Abdullah. Genetics. Sid, Crystal is here. She wants to know if you got any answers from the guys at Quantico about the questionnaire. Put her on. He waited and heard Crystal's voice. Hey, Sid, what's happening? My cold turkey sandwich is sitting undigested in front of me. It's a hot day in D.C. My investigation is spinning its wheels in loose sand. I think Peter is going to make me shelve my kidnapped scientists if I don't have anything by the end of the week. Kidnapping cases don't suit you. What did the shrink say? Sid pulled out his notepad and a pen. Where can I fax the report to you? She gave him a phone number, and he added, You have to read the fine print. But head shrink Russ Tanner thought it was a test. The sort psychologists give people to profile their personalities. He said that the changing questions were routine. If you answer something that gets a hit, the program changes to ask you more specific questions. Say you got a neurosis about being compulsively neat. It tailors itself to determine just how fucked up you really are. All this is in the report? Yeah, I'll fax it to you as soon as I get back to the office. Do me a favor, huh? Deep six the paperwork when you get it. I don't want anything coming back to haunt my slate. For you, Sid, anything. Lyman and I will burn it in the trash can after we read it. Then we'll flush the ashes down the john. He grinned as he took a bite of a sandwich. Through a mouthful, he said, Chris, spy work really suits you. Terry, even if that's true, wouldn't making myself adult with a one single letter as all of my descriptor, wouldn't that keep me like, why would they recommend an adult video? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that keep me hidden more? Like, I'm deeply trying to not get seen in the algorithm at all. Like, should I just write as a title? Don't fucking watch. Sorry. All right. The green room for the Mike Ballard show at the studio in downtown Toronto was well stocked. Cristal glanced past Lyman as Rob Sawyer, a Canadian science fiction author, opened the refrigerator and removed a can of pop. Sawyer was up next, having just won a Canadian Literary Award. She reclined on a gray fabric upholstered couch and glanced up at the television monitor as a round of applause broke out for Sheila. The television in the corner of the small room showed Sheila as she walked out on stage clad in a pastel blue Ungaro wraparound. People in the green room were silent as Sheila walked up to Ballard and kissed him lightly on the cheek. "That's my Sheila," Dot whispered. She sat in the chair opposite them, a sheaf of papers in her hands, reading glasses down on her nose. As she watched Sheila take her seat and oh, so you're saying if I could just find pictures of like ugly men and hold it up that might help? I'll do that. I probably have a book somewhere of like cartoons. As she watched Sheila take her seat and smile out at the live audience, the orchestra was playing the theme to Blood Rage. When the music died away, Bullard began teasing Sheila about her Oscar and why she had come to Toronto to shoot Jagged Cat. Cristal glanced at Lyman, seeing the longing in his expression as he watched Sheila on the monitor. "You okay?" she asked in a soft voice. "Yeah," he muttered, tearing his attention from the screen. "It's been busy. What's Sid's fax look like?" She tapped a roll of paper in her lap. "I failed the test, Lyman. That's why the website cut me off. It makes perfect sense." "Explain. You were the one talking to Sid." She glanced around the crowded room. Sheila had been the headline star. Everyone in the green room was fixed on the TV. "You've got to see the questionnaire for what it really is. Some sort of tool for evaluating the people taking it. Whatever Genesis Athena is looking for, I gave it the wrong information." "Okay, such as?" "Well, for instance, I listed the wrong interest under hobbies. I think I said something flippant about stamp collecting and big game hunting. That's not what they were looking for." "Right." Lyman frowned. "What do you think they're after?" "I think they want obsession. That's why the bathroom questions were so important. I answered practically. Their psychologists were looking for some different order in the importance of bathroom fixtures." "Huh? You lost me." He crossed his arms. "All right, let's say that someone compulsive filled out that questionnaire. After a toilet and sink, they might say a mirror was the next most important thing." "Why?" She was fishing, knowing that she was out of her league here, because an obsessive person might need to see themselves, to constantly be reassured that their hair is in place, that nothing is stuck in their teeth. Lyman grinned. "Okay, so we should have had Tony take the test." "Yeah, maybe," she frowned, "but my guess is that your old friend Chrissy might have been a better choice." Lyman started, his gaze prying at her. "Chrissy's a nut. She's obsessed with—" He whistled softly. "Jesus, is that what you're getting at?" "Look, it's just the way my mind works, okay? Grandma said I had this gift. It's the closest I can come to an explanation for a hunch like this. How often are your hunches proven right? She met his stare. Often enough that I don't question them. So, you're thinking Genesis Athena is designed to recognize obsessive compulsive disorders. She nodded. I'm not sure why, Lyman. That part eludes me. Oh my god, finally something would be perfect for me. I would be accepted. Be like, how often do you replay in your mind every horrible thing that's happened to you and all the people that have lied to you and abandoned you? Or like, you win. I'm booked on a United flight to Denver in the morning. Maybe it will make sense when I find their offices. Broomfield? That's a curious place for their headquarters, but also they're just going to Colorado where they trace the phone number. Uh, but maybe by going there, I'll figure it out. If I find out it's a mental institution in the mail when we get back to LA, or wait, hold on. If I find out it's a mental institution, some of the pieces will have fallen in place. If not, we'll see what comes in the mail when we get back to LA. But I'm betting that their Sheila packet will have something in it that will act as a lure for the lunatic fringe. Lyman was staring off into the distance. Did Chrissy ever answer your email asking about her having Sheila's baby? No. We would have nailed her on that. Even sending an email is in violation of her restraining order. Do you think Genesis Athena is run by one of Sheila's wacko fans? After seeing the Share La Sheila site, I guess I can believe anything. My inclination is that it's probably harmless. Worry lined his brow. I'm more concerned about the Arab angle and what Abdullah wants. He's rich, powerful, and sniffing around Sheila. He's got my hackles up. He's a threat. I can just feel it. Yeah, me too. Cristal rubbed her arms uncomfortably. You weren't the one who got irate right there in front of God and everyone. Lyman nodded in concern. On that line, maybe your buddy Hank is Abdullah's new bird dog. Sid said that the good sheik likes pretty girls, right? If you'd taken that job, you might be jetting around the world in posh luxury, rather than sitting here waiting on the Mike and Sheila show. The crowd burst out laughing as Sheila made a joke about the tampon theft. It seemed that story still hadn't died. Get a life, boss. I'd rather be a maid at Motel 6 in Albuquerque than spend a single second in that guy's presence. Grandma would have said he had El Malojo, the evil eye. The man's bad news. End of story. Hear, hear. Yes, evil. A voice whispered in Cristal's head, and he wants you. A cold shiver ran through her. Out of nowhere, she asked, do you think he's behind the celeb hits? What? Where did that come from? I was just thinking how creepy Abdullah was, and it popped out. Lyman glanced up as Mike Bullard and Sheila laughed together. They had moved on to telling some joke about ice fishing in Saskatchewan. Cristal decided it was something peculiarly Canadian in humor. Lyman said, I could see some obsessed male Arab living in an living those were wiggles, those were shivers. Wiggle is like okay. Lyman said, I could see some obsessed male Arab having an interest in pretty woman's tampon. Kinky, but possible. As to Mel Gibson's razor scuzz and shooting a dart into Brad Pitt's butt, well, there you got me. Who know? Cristal mused. Hank works for Abdullah. Maybe we should have met with him.
We could have stripped him naked, hung him up by his thumbs, and squeezed him for information. I think he'd have spilled his guts with the right persuasion. Lyman gave her a careful scrutiny. Are you always this edgy? She fixed a plastic smile, only when I imagine the expression on Hank's face when I flick my bick under his scrotum. Whoa! You must really like the guy. I hate people who lead me astray, mostly because they remind me of how stupid I was. If I'm ever stupid, Lyman, don't remind me of it, okay? Yeah, images of butane lighters are filling my fertile imagination. I got the message. He lifted an eyebrow, hazel eyes attentive. I've been meaning to ask, do you think it's a coincidence that Hank goes into personal security just after you do? I don't know, she answered honestly. I had no contact with him after I left the bureau. The only link between the two of us would have been Sid, and he wouldn't have said anything to Abrams. Lyman wiggled his shoulders as he scrunched lower into the seat. The coincidence bothers me. I don't know, Cristal. It's like we're dancing around the peripheries, but not seeing what ties the whole puzzle together. If it's a puzzle, she countered, I mean, you're just assuming that Genesis Athena, Sheik Abdullah, the celeb hits, and Hank are related. He mulled it over. All right, you're the one with the weird spooky gift and the brouhaha grandma. What's your take? Are they related or not? Related, she muttered, unhappy with herself for saying it. For the life of me, I don't know why, but I think when it comes to me, it will all fit like a glove. A wild burst of applause broke out as Sheila stood, waved to the crowd, and took Mike Bullard's hand. What about her? Lyman's voice was barely a whisper. Will she be safe, Cristal? Mm. Cristal paused, lowering her voice to match his. You should marry her, Lyman. Sure, he breathed. Julia Roberts married Danny Moder, her cameraman, and Anne H. married her cameraman too. Sharon Stone married Phil Bronstein, a newspaper editor. Cristal. Huh? Shut up. He rose too quickly to his feet, lifting his sleeve to say, Paul, she's on the way. We'll meet you at the door within 5. In her earpiece, Cristal heard, Roger, boss, paparazzi are here in a drove. Tell Sheila to be on deck and ready for them. Cristal rose, straightened her tweed skirt, and followed after Lyman. She would be slightly behind Sheila and to one side as they left the building. Dot had gathered her things and stepped into the line as Lyman explained about the paparazzi. Sheik Abdullah's face hung in the back of Cristal's mind. El Malojo, her grandmother's voice spoke from beyond the grave. He is evil, child, and he wants you. Hank sipped coffee from a disposable Tim Hortons cup and glanced around the spacious lobby of the Weston Harbor Castle. Oh my God, he followed them there. Hank is a fucking creep. At this time of morning, the place was like a tomb. Only the desk clerk stood behind the polished counter, passing the registration desk. He lifted one of the house phones from the receiver and punched O. After 3 rings, a voice informed him, Hotel operator. Yes, could you connect me with Cristal Inaya's room, please? One moment. Hank pursed his lips and scowled uncertainly as he monitored the lobby. It had taken him 2 days to discover that Sheila Marks had packed up and flown to Toronto to film scenes on location. He'd scrambled to get here, then scrambled for another day and a half to find Cristal's hotel. Damn it, I'm headed for a fuck up again. He hated the feeling of inadequacy that had plagued him since the Gonzalez fiasco. When he rubbed his cheeks, he could feel stubble. Hell of a thing. He used to be perfectly groomed. The way he lived now, wrestling from one motel to another, he barely had time to wash his clothes. Now he had her located. All it would take was a touch, just a moment in her presence, and he could call it quits and return to New York. He ran the gimmick through his head. He'd say he was with building maintenance, eh? The phones had gone down, been hacked by pranksters, eh? Was she Melinda Arbuckle in room 4312? When she said no, he'd ask which room he'd been connected to. The phone rang 5 times before the operator broke in to state, "I'm sorry, sir. It appears that Miss Anaya isn't in her room. Would you care to leave a message on her voicemail?" "No, thanks." He grimaced as he hung up the phone and glanced at his watch. It was 4:45. Where the hell was she? Christ, at this time of morning, Viola Cristal would have been lost in REM sleep. He started to turn when the elevator dinged and Cristal stepped out. He sees her. "Oh no, Cristal, you in danger." A black nylon suitcase hanging from a strap on at her shoulder. She was dressed in a professional pantsuit with a light gray cotton jacket. Hank turned, facing the wall, with the phone to his ear. From the corner of his eye, he watched as Cristal crossed the lobby, her heels clicking on the polished floor. She stepped through the glass doors at the main entrance and out to the curb. Hank hung up the phone and hurried after her, stopping just short of the door, where he could glance past the aluminum jamb. The doorman had hailed a cab and was holding the door as Cristal slipped into the back seat. Hank waited until the cab began to roll before stepping out and running up to the doorman. "Shit!" he cried in despair as he watched the cab take a right onto the street beyond. He turned to the surprised doorman. "Did Chris say where she was headed?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. "She left these, and she's going to be really upset when she realizes they're gone." The doorman hesitated an instant, seeing the worry on Hank's face, then sputtered, "You better hurry, sir. She's on her way to the airport. I heard her say the international terminal." "Great, thanks." Hank turned on his heel, sprinting for the line of cabs that waited in a line at the curb of the drive-in. Hell, if she was flying somewhere, he had to at least figure out where. If it was back to LA, well and good. He could catch up with her there. If it was somewhere else, did he dare let her out of his sight? What if he lost her again? Pharrell would think he was a complete bumbling incompetent. The cab driver, a Sikh given his turban, was half out of his door when Hank yanked the passenger door open and cried, "International terminal at the airport." He slammed the door and shook his head, wiping at the coffee he'd spilled on his pants. The Tim Hortons cup was half crushed in his hand. Okay, and that's the end of chapter 24. We'll pick it up on chapter 25 tomorrow. Hopefully I have a channel. Yeah. Ow. Oh, my little flowers. I'm sorry for whatever I've done tonight that has harmed the children of the world on my video that's rated adult with one letter. Huh. Trying to see what you're saying, but well, I know some people flag me, but at the same time, like, um, I know if you're flagged by enough people too, like 2 or 5 or something, that gets more like attention of like, get my little hair sticking up here. I didn't even have time to blow dry my bangs or anything. I had my hair up in a bun at the Ralph's in the the imaging place. Anyway, what bothered me, it's like, I know when I lost my channel, and these women had on their pages that guys were saying that they flagged me, that they were flagging my channel for them, and they were giving them hearts and thanking them. And I was just like, let me find the right word. I suffer. Like, I suffer. And if people want to, like, my suffering has an absolute connection to benefiting those other people's channels. Like, every time they take my channel down, that's a total obvious benefit to them. Even now, I'm relegated to, like, and like, what happens to a person? I thought about this the other day. Like, what would have happened to me if I had kept my channel? Like, I can't even imagine. I can't actually imagine, because, I haven't, haven't become an alcoholic. I still never drink. I haven't become a drug addict, or I still never do drugs. But it's like, what happened to me, what happens to a person, to go through this, and how you end up and how you come out. So it's like, I become very, like, guarded of myself, that, okay, you want to support the people to benefit hurting me? If I see who you are, I don't want you here. Like, I'm hurt enough, I'm not ever going to be able to have what they have, ever. So you want to support them, just leave me the fuck alone. Like, let me have the little bit that I have, and let them dance on my grave, but at least leave me on my grave alone down here, But like, to see people to be like, oh, yeah, Stella, and then support those people, if I see that, no, sorry. So, what do we think? What's I going to say? Like, I kind of like her in the moment where she's like, when she's in trouble, like, I don't want to say anything happened to her. But then I'm like, you slept with Hank, and Hank's a dirtbag, and you have dirtbag behavior, and you knew he was married. And I see a couple words in my head. The selfish, greedy, like unconcerned with, like, harming other people. Like, these words don't lend to, like, it being, like, a good person. So I have a hard time to care for Crystal, really. But the other people care about her, and then she has her moments. So I don't know. Like, if she dies, I think I will feel like, and then, well, at least it wasn't Sheila. I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. I don't know if you like her. But her being followed by that guy, I'm just like, leave her alone. No redemption. So yeah, I'm a big fan of, like, breaking down someone's actions into what they are. And people don't tend to like that if you do it to them. But it's like, people that want to go to, like, say countries that are, like, poor, but they have like a American or income. I like to break it down to what it is. Like, okay, so when you say live like a king, what you mean is, like, you want to be above people. You want to use their poverty. You want to be, you want to take advantage of their poverty. You want to benefit yourself because other people are, to be exploited by you. Like, that's what you are. That's who you are. Here's a mirror. So, like, I don't know. So when someone like makes a decision or says something, I can break it down. It's like, you are actively supporting the people that want to see me crushed. That is what you are. Then bye. And for her, I could say, this is a greedy behavior. What does it say about you? What does it say about your choices, where they come from, you know? Anyway. I know there's a debate tomorrow. I don't know what time. I don't know if I'll have a channel. Because this is my backup, so do I have time for another backup? Like, well, I suppose I could go on Betty with the fake fans, but this is hard. Because I feel people are watching me that really want us to make that channel go away. And anyway, but I won't be watching it because I don't care about that kind of thing. I guess if something funny happens, I don't know. But I know some of you might find it some interest, some informative. I don't know. I mean, usually on Tuesdays, like, I try to go to the dump. I'd love to have a pumpkin donuts, but whatever I find do tomorrow, and then it would just be that and the donut come on my. I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. I have a lot of pain. And then, of course, Wednesday I see my doctor again to tell her I have not done the blood test and I have not done an X-ray, so that should be just great. Yeah, but I don't feel comfortable. But also, I don't feel comfortable when I'm not reading to you guys. Like, I don't feel comfortable that I should have to miss a night. That I don't feel comfortable with that either. So I get stuck. At least tonight, and they do this when they know, like, I'm about to read, and it's like they want to see that pain. Fine, whatever. But that sucks because it took me by surprise, and the way that my trauma is presenting itself with anything type of a shock, it gets like in my brain, like it triggers a reaction that's like hard to like recover from, and so they did it right before the show, and it was like I wasn't prepared for that. In fact, I considered myself grateful to have still had that. So anyway, not the worst day, not the best day, but I'm still here, and I think this book is fun, and I look forward to reading it to you again next time, hopefully tomorrow. You can control the ones who try to comment. Yeah. That's why I totally banned Larry, because I didn't want him coming up every time I have a new channel. Like, hey guys, I'm not a racist. Bye. Oh, this asshole. Anyway, whatever you do tonight, have a good sleep. I tried to watch that movie Horizon on HBO that's like a Western with Kevin Costner. I wasn't able to follow all of it, but there were some very sad moments. But that's what I watched last night, so yeah. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. But yeah, on that channel, you'll probably see him pop up because he knows I still have that. And then please, next time I'm on Betty, ban. Anyway, I love you so much. Thank you for caring about me even when I'm in. Wow, look at how thick the stem is on this one. Like, look at this one. And look at this. This is a demonstration of the unfairness in the world. Some really have it all. Sorry. Have you watched? No, I haven't watched Lucy yet. That's on. Did you say Hulu? It's one of them that I have, right? Peacock or something. I want to watch it. It's with Scarlett Johansson. Us poor Micah, shut up. It's just like, look at the difference. These are the people. They're born into wealth, privilege, and they take us and they snap us. They try to take away all of our petals. Peacock. Okay. Yes, I will check it out. All right. So I'm going to take something for my itches and maybe watch Lucy. And I will let you know what I think. Okay. I love you.